You know what happens to a man who never says no? At first, people call him the nice guy. Women say he's sweet, easygoing, someone who will do anything for them. But slowly, without him even noticing, that same sweetness turns into weakness in her eyes. And what he thought was love starts rotting into something else: pity, boredom, even disgust. Most men are raised to believe that love means giving without limits. Always agree. Always compromise. Always keep the peace. From childhood, they hear lines like, happy wife, happy life. They're told that a real man sacrifices his comfort so she can feel secure. So when the woman says, I don't like that friend of yours, he cuts the friend out. When she says, you spend too much time at the gym, he quits working out. When she hints, why don't you ever surprise me anymore, he pulls out the credit card to buy things he can't even afford. And for a while, it seems to work. She smiles, she says thank you, maybe she even brags to her friends that she has such a good man. But beneath the surface, something else is happening. Every time he avoids conflict, every time he bites his tongue instead of standing his ground, he's silently killing her respect for him. Because what she really sees isn't love. It's fear. Fear of losing her. Fear of upsetting her. Fear of being alone. Here's the brutal truth: women can sense fear in a man faster than they can smell cologne. And nothing dries up attraction quicker than realizing the man next to you is terrified of saying no. Think about it. If he won't even defend his own time, his own values, or his own identity, how can he protect her when life actually gets hard? How can she trust him when danger comes, or when real leadership is needed? She can't. And that's when she starts treating him like background noise. He's there physically, but invisible emotionally. You've probably seen it. The guy who apologizes for everything. Who nervously laughs when she mocks him in front of friends. Who says sure, babe to every demand, even when it tears him apart inside. On the outside, it looks like peace. But it's not peace. It's slow death. The silence of never saying no doesn't keep the relationship alive. It kills it from the inside out. Because respect doesn't die in one dramatic fight. It dies in 1,000 tiny moments of silence every time a man surrenders when he should have stood firm. And once respect is gone, love never lasts. Prisons don't get built in a single day. They start with one brick, one bar, one lock at a time. And in relationships, that prison often begins with the smallest, most innocent-looking concessions. Things so tiny you barely notice them. It might start with her saying, I don't really like that shirt on you. You laugh, toss it in the back of the closet, and wear something else. No big deal, right? Then she says, do you really have to hang out with those friends tonight? You cancel the plans, tell yourself it's just one night. Another brick in the wall. A week later, I don't like the way you joke with people at work. You tone it down, even though the humor was part of who you are. Another bar slides into place. Individually, none of these feel dangerous. They even seem reasonable. After all, compromise is part of love, right? That's what we've all been told. But here's the catch: compromise isn't love when it's one-sided. Compromise becomes control when only one person is bending. And every time you bend while she stands firm, the bars of that invisible prison close tighter around you. It doesn't happen overnight. That's why it's so deadly. If she demanded everything from you on day one, you'd walk away. But she doesn't. She chips away at your freedom piece by piece. And because you mistake surrender for devotion, you don't see what's happening. You call it love, loyalty, sacrifice. But what it really is the slow death of your identity. Think about the man who loved playing guitar but gave it up because she said it was a waste of time. Or the guy who loved going out with his buddies but stopped because she rolled her eyes every time he mentioned it. At first, he shrugs and thinks, it's fine, I don't need it. But with every small sacrifice, he's cutting away pieces of himself until one day he doesn't even recognize the man in the mirror. The most dangerous prisons are the ones we build ourselves. Because when you're the one putting on the shackles, you convince yourself they're bracelets of love. You tell yourself, this is what a good man does. But good men who never say no eventually stop being men in her eyes. They become pets. And nobody falls in love with their pet. The beginning of the prison is invisible because it looks like kindness. But once the walls are built, once the gates slam shut, it's almost impossible to break free. Unless you recognize the pattern early. Unless you learn the power of that one word, no, before it's too late. Every man who's ever been in a serious relationship has felt it, the sudden shift in her tone, the little digs, the innocent questions that don't feel so innocent. These are tests. And if you don't understand them, they will break you down one yes at a time. Why do women test men? It's not always conscious. It's not because they're evil masterminds plotting in the shadows. It's instinct. Deep in her biology, a woman is wired to ask, is this man strong enough to lead? Strong enough to protect? Strong enough to stand firm when life gets messy? And the only way she finds out is by pushing, prodding, and testing your boundaries. It might look like sarcasm in front of her friends. It might sound like, do you even know how to fix that? It might be a fake threat like, maybe I should just find a man who appreciates me. Each one is a probe, a little nudge to see if you collapse or hold steady. Here's the paradox, she doesn't actually want you to fail. She's not hoping you'll cave. In fact, every time you give in, every time you chase, every time you beg, you kill her attraction. The very thing she's testing for, your strength, dies the moment you show weakness. It's like erosion. A single wave doesn't destroy a cliff. But wave after wave, year after year, the rock crumbles into sand. Each yes, dear, each nervous apology, each compromise that violates your own standards is another wave. And one day, there's nothing left of the man she once admired. Think about the guy who hears, I don't think you're man enough for me. The weak response? He pleads, of course I am, baby, please don't say that. She tested him, and he failed. The strong response? Calmly looking her in the eye and saying, then maybe you should find someone else. She tested him, and instead of breaking, he stood tall. That's when respect grows. The paradox is brutal. Women test men to see strength, but those very tests destroy most men because they mistake them for real threats. They panic. They fold. They think they're saving the relationship, when in reality, they're burying it alive. And here's the kicker, she'll never stop testing. It's not a phase. It's part of her nature. The only question is whether you'll keep failing until she loses all attraction, or finally pass by showing that you're not afraid to say no. That's the paradox of the test. She doesn't want to win. She wants you to. There's a moment in every man's life where the script finally flips. Maybe it's small. Maybe it's not even planned. But when it happens, the world around him shifts in an instant. That moment is the first time he looks her in the eye and calmly says one word she never expected, no. Picture it. She's used to you bending. She's used to you apologizing. She's used to you rearranging your entire life to avoid her disapproval. So when she throws out another demand, don't go out with your friends tonight, or you need to cancel that trip, she already knows how the story ends. She expects you to sigh, nod, and give in like always. But this time, something different happens. You don't raise your voice. You don't explain yourself in a 3-paragraph speech. You don't beg for her understanding. You just look at her, steady and calm, and say, no. I'm not doing that. The air changes. It's almost physical. Her eyes widen, not in anger at first, but in shock. Because for the first time, the predictable pattern is broken. The man she thought she had fully mapped out suddenly shows depth she didn't know existed. Silence fills the room, heavy and electric. Her instinct might be to push harder. She might cross her arms, raise her voice, or throw out another threat. But underneath the performance, something else is happening inside her, respect. The very thing she's been unconsciously craving. She doesn't want a pet. She doesn't want a servant. She wants a man strong enough to stand on his own 2 feet even if it means standing against her. That single no communicates more than 1,000 yes ever could. It says, I value myself. I have boundaries. I won't trade my integrity for your temporary approval. And whether she admits it or not, she feels it. I've seen it countless times. A guy spends years saying yes, losing himself piece by piece. Then one night, he refuses something simple. Maybe it's a manipulative guilt trip, maybe it's a threat to withhold affection. He stays calm, firm, unshaken. And in that moment, she goes quiet. Not defeated, not humiliated, but confronted with a man she can't control. For the first time in years, she has to respect him. That's the power of the first no. It's not shouted in anger. It's whispered with certainty. And in that whisper, the entire foundation of the relationship changes. Because from that moment on, she knows, the old pattern is dead. And the man in front of her is finally alive. Every time a man surrenders when he should stand firm, something happens in her mind. She doesn't consciously plan it, but it grows all the same. An invisible crown begins to form on her head. At first, it's just a tiny shimmer, barely noticeable. The first time you cancel your plans because she pouts, the crown appears. The second time you apologize for something you didn't even do, it gets bigger. The third time you let her mock you in front of her friends without saying a word, the crown shines brighter. With each submission, the crown grows heavier, taller, more obvious. And here's the cruel irony: the bigger her crown gets, the smaller you become. You shrink in her eyes, not because she wanted a weak man, but because you taught her you are one. The crown represents control, and control always comes at the cost of respect. Men often think they're keeping the peace by giving in. But what they don't see is that peace without respect is just disguised contempt. When the crown becomes too heavy, she no longer looks at you like a partner. She looks at you like furniture. You're just there to hold things together, to provide comfort, money, validation, while she rules the kingdom of the relationship. But something miraculous happens the moment you finally say no. That invisible crown, the one she thought was permanently welded to her head, slips. Sometimes it crashes to the floor in one loud moment. Sometimes it tilts slowly, shaking her entire sense of power. Either way, it falls. Because that no isn't just about refusing one request. It's about destroying the illusion that she is untouchable, unquestionable, unstoppable. For the first time, she sees a man in front of her, not a servant. And that realization shakes her to her core. I've watched it happen. A woman storms into a room, full of demands, head held high with her invisible crown. Then her partner calmly refuses, no anger, no pleading, just certainty. You can almost see the crown slipping. Her face changes. Her tone changes. The certainty she had about her dominance evaporates. The crown falls because respect doesn't grow from control. It grows from boundaries. And when you finally show her that your boundaries are stronger than her manipulation, she can't help but see you differently. The collapse of the crown isn't about humiliating her. It's about restoring balance. It's about reminding both of you that a relationship isn't a kingdom where one rules and the other serves. It's a partnership, and partnerships only work when the crown disappears. The first time you finally say no, don't expect applause. Don't expect her to smile, hug you, and thank you for finally being a man. That's not how it works. More often than not, the first reaction is explosive. Anger, sarcasm, guilt trips, silent treatment, it all comes pouring out. She might slam a door. She might call you selfish. She might say, "Wow, you've really changed," as if standing up for yourself is a crime. She might even threaten to leave. On the surface, it looks like rejection. It looks like you just destroyed everything. And most men panic at this stage. They fold. They think, "I went too far. I have to fix this." So they rush back, apologize, and erase the progress they just made. But here's the truth: that reaction isn't the end of respect, it's the beginning of it. Think about it. If she was truly indifferent, if you meant nothing, she wouldn't fight at all. She'd shrug and move on. But the fact that she's reacting, the fact that she's pushing back with so much emotion, shows that something inside her is shifting. For the first time in a long time, she feels uncertainty. And uncertainty is the birthplace of attraction. Yes, she might scream. Yes, she might try to manipulate. She might even cry and play the victim. But underneath every one of those tactics, there's a new awareness forming: I can't control him anymore. And that realization, though it stings at first, is exactly what makes her respect you again. It's like a child testing the fence in the backyard. They push and push, trying to see if the boundary will break. When it doesn't, they get angry. They kick the fence. They yell. But deep down, they feel safer knowing the boundary is solid. Women are the same. Their outbursts are the surface-level storm. But the calm that follows is built on respect. I've seen men hold their ground through that storm. The woman yells, mocks, even throws out the ultimate line: maybe we should just break up. And instead of panicking, he simply says, if that's how you feel, then maybe we should. The look on her face? Shock. Silence. And then, slowly, a new kind of respect. Her initial reaction may be rage, but her lasting reaction is admiration. Because deep inside, every woman knows, a man who can't say no isn't a man she can trust. And once she realizes you won't break, she finally starts to see you again, not as her servant, but as the man she was hoping you'd be all along. When a man finally learns to say no, something incredible happens. The entire dynamic of the relationship shifts. For years, maybe decades, he's been the one chasing, apologizing, sacrificing. He was the provider, the fixer, the one who always had to prove his worth. In her eyes, he was replaceable, another man who would do anything to keep her. But the moment he stops begging for approval and starts living by his own standards, the power flips. Suddenly, he's no longer the one trying to earn a place in her life. She's the one trying to earn a place in his. You can see it in the smallest ways. The man who used to cancel his plans at the drop of a hat now sticks to them. He goes to the gym because he wants to, not because she approves. He spends time with friends, pursues hobbies, invests in himself. And she notices. At first, she may resent it. But soon, resentment turns into curiosity. What's gotten into him? Then curiosity turns into attraction. Because deep down, women aren't drawn to the man who worships them. They're drawn to the man who doesn't need them to feel complete. Think about it, every woman claims she wants a nice guy, someone who's always there. But what happens when she actually gets one? She grows bored, restless, even contemptuous. Why? Because she knows he has no value outside of her. He's safe, predictable, disposable. But when that same man starts saying no, when he stops orbiting her world and makes her orbit his, she feels something she hasn't felt in years: competition. And nothing drives attraction like competition. It's no longer, will he fight to keep me? It becomes, am I good enough to keep him? That subtle switch transforms everything. The man who once begged for attention now commands it. The man who was taken for granted now becomes the prize. I've seen women who spent years disrespecting their partners suddenly change overnight. They start dressing better, cooking dinners, planning dates, doing everything they used to complain about. Not because they were trained, but because they realized they could lose him. Respect doesn't come from giving her everything. It comes from showing you don't need her for anything. And once she feels that shift, once she understands that you are the prize, her entire approach to you changes. She doesn't see you as disposable anymore. She sees you as the man she can't afford to lose. That's the game of power flipping, and it all starts with a single word: no. There's one mistake almost every man makes after finally learning to say no: he tastes the respect, he feels the shift, he sees her reaction. For the first time in years, she looks at him differently. And then, he gets scared. He second guesses himself. He starts wondering, maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I should soften up. And just like that, he takes it all back. That single act of retreat is deadly. Because once you've shown her strength, once you've drawn a line and held it, going back doesn't just erase your progress, it destroys it forever. Think of it like a dam holding back a river. The first time you stand your ground, you build that dam. The water comes, the chaos is contained. But the moment you crack under pressure, the dam bursts. All the respect you earned floods out in an instant, and the damage is far worse than before. Why? Because she now knows the truth. She knows you can be strong, but you chose not to be. You had the power, the backbone, the ability to lead, and you threw it away. And nothing kills attraction faster than wasted potential. I've seen this play out too many times. A man finally stands firm. She pushes, argues, tests him. He holds the line. She feels the shock, the respect, even the attraction. Then, 2 days later, he comes crawling back, apologizing for being mean, promising it won't happen again. And in that moment, whatever spark he lit is gone. She doesn't just lose respect. She loses faith. Because here's the truth, once you show strength, you can't unshow it. Once you've proven you're capable of being a man she can respect, she'll never forgive you for throwing that away. She'll see you as weaker than before, not because you failed, but because you quit after succeeding. That's why consistency is everything. Saying no isn't a one-time magic trick. It's a lifestyle. It's a decision you make every day to value your principles over her approval. The moment you trade that back for comfort, for temporary peace, or for fear of losing her, you don't just go back to square one, you fall into a pit deeper than where you started. So understand this, the most dangerous thing you can do isn't saying no, it's saying no once, and then crawling back to yes. Because once you go back, respect doesn't just fade. It dies. And once it's dead, it almost never returns. Something powerful happens the first time a man says no and means it. At first, it feels foreign, almost dangerous. He's been trained for years, maybe his entire life, to avoid conflict, to smooth things over, to keep women happy no matter the cost. But when that word leaves his mouth, calm and certain, it does more than change her perception. It changes him. Because no isn't just a boundary with her, it's a declaration to himself. It says, I matter too. My time matters. My values matter. My life matters. And that recognition is like oxygen to a man who's been suffocating under years of silent submission. Dignity returns first. The same man who once avoided mirrors because he didn't like who he'd become suddenly sees himself again. Shoulders back, eyes steady, voice firm. For the first time in a long time, he feels like a man, not a shadow. That shift doesn't just restore self-respect, it makes others notice too. Friends, co-workers, even strangers respond differently when a man carries himself with dignity. Then comes peace. Most men believe saying yes keeps the peace, but that's a lie. It only builds quiet resentment, like a volcano waiting to erupt. When you finally say no, you remove the weight of living someone else's script. No more walking on eggshells. No more endless guessing games. Just clarity. And with clarity comes calm. And finally, happiness. Not the fake happiness of keeping her satisfied while you're dying inside, but the real kind. The kind that comes when you start living life on your own terms again. You go back to the hobbies you abandoned, the friendships you sacrificed, the goals you buried. You realize you can laugh without asking permission. You can breathe without apologizing. Here's the secret, women may not always reward your strength immediately, but life always does. Because the act of reclaiming your voice doesn't just improve your relationship, it improves your soul. I've seen men rediscover passions they thought were gone forever. Music. Fitness. Business ideas. Adventures. Saying no in one area opens the door to saying yes in every other area that truly matters. It's like breaking out of a cage and realizing the world was waiting for you the whole time. That's the effect on the male heart. No isn't just rejection. It's resurrection. It's the moment a man comes back to life, piece by piece, until he finally feels whole again. Every man reaches a crossroads. On one side is the path he's always known, the endless yes. The fake peace, the forced smiles, the quiet suffering of bending until he finally breaks. It's familiar. It's comfortable. It feels safe because it avoids conflict. But it's a slow death. A death of respect, a death of identity, a death of the man he was meant to be. On the other side is a different path. A harder one at first. The path of no, the path of boundaries, of strength, of living by your own values instead of begging for someone else's approval. It's not easy. It means risking her anger. It means risking her threats. Sometimes it even means risking the relationship itself. But what you gain is worth more than anything you could ever lose. Because when you say no, you're not just refusing her request, you're refusing to betray yourself. And that's where freedom lives. Freedom from manipulation. Freedom from fear. Freedom from the invisible prison built brick by brick every time you said yes when your heart screamed no. This is the final choice every man has to make. Stay in the cycle of endless submission, where love rots into resentment and respect dies in silence. Or step into the unknown, where no becomes the most powerful word you'll ever speak. I've seen both paths play out. The man who never learned to stand up ends up hollow, resentful, bitter, broken, trapped in a relationship where he's more servant than partner. He convinces himself this is what love is supposed to look like, even while it drains the life from him. And then there's the man who dared to draw the line. Who dared to say, calmly and firmly, no. That's not who I am. That's not what I'll accept. That man doesn't just keep his respect, he keeps his soul. Whether the relationship survives or not, he survives. In fact, he thrives. Because the respect he wins back from her is nothing compared to the respect he wins back from himself. So here you are, standing at that same crossroads. One road leads to the slow death of endless yes. The other leads to the freedom of a single no. No one can walk it for you. No one can make the choice but you. But remember this, the woman in your life doesn't fear losing you. She fears losing control of you. And the moment you choose no, she knows she never had that control to begin with. The choice is final. The choice is yours.